Hey guys, Steve here, Fanatic Perspective. Just wrapped up the Alabama Clemson game. Alabama obviously victorious, advancing to the national championship to face the Georgia Bulldogs. So just wanted to do a recap of the two playoff games we saw today, starting with Georgia and Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl. Very, very exciting game. Actually turned into a little bit more of a Big 12 type shootout. And you have to give a lot of credit to Georgia and Kirby Smart for making those halftime adjustments, making some in-game adjustments throughout the second half to pull out a victory in double OT. Going against a guy, and I talked about this in my earlier videos, and I will come here now and say I was wrong about Georgia and Oklahoma. I think I had predicted that Oklahoma would defeat Georgia because of the quarterback advantage over Jake Fromm, but Jake Fromm played very, very well today. I had my doubts, but in a big spot, like he's shown all season, but he was just very consistent throwing. He threw the ball well enough for them to run the football efficiently, but just in general, he threw the ball very, very well and made some big third down throws. And I was impressed with him today. I was impressed with his poise, the checks he made at the line of scrimmage to get into favorable run plays. And then they had the big 1-2 punch with Chubb and Michelle. So that was great. I mean, and the biggest thing I want to highlight in that game is coaching again. The adjustments. They were so off guard by Lincoln Riley and the things that Oklahoma came out doing. Oklahoma's opening script was amazing, and they've been doing that. They've been bludgeoning people for years with Baker and that, with the tempo and in that offense. The first drive, they throw, touchdown. Second drive, they come out, run, touchdown. And I think they threw for almost 300 yards, ran for over 200 yards. They were getting whatever they wanted, but in the second half, Georgia adjusted and adapted, changed some things up, and slowed them down enough to where they started getting a pass rush, started being more physical, getting in Baker's face, not letting Baker run all over the place and create plays. And you saw their defense, take over towards the end. I mean, in that overtime, Baker gets 2 chances with the ball and doesn't score a touchdown. So there's nothing, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I mean, that's what you want in that situation. We get the ball when we score a touchdown, and both times they didn't, they lose the football game. So much credit to Georgia. I know a lot of Oklahoma people are complaining about the play calling of Lincoln Riley today, and it seemed like he was kind of grasping at straws, especially in that second half once Georgia did make their adjustments. And that's part of the game. When I take away plan A, what's plan B, plan C? Do you have a contingency and plan in place? Because it's a chess match. And I talk about this so often in my Cowboy videos and my Longhorn videos about the adjustments that you have to make throughout a football game. And Kirby Smart, won this game today, him and his staff. So a lot of credit there. Just finished watching the Alabama Clemson game, and I told you guys Alabama was gonna roll over Clemson. Nick already told y'all once I get my linebackers back, it is what it is. Kelly Bryant's it's not Deshaun Watson. You saw that today. The biggest difference from the last 2 years to this year, it was Deshaun Watson. You have to have unbelievable quarterback play to consistently move the ball against Alabama. Alabama showed weakness early, late in the season because people were injured. But, they had everybody but 2 guys back today. We'll see. Jennings got hurt, I think, at the end of the game. So we'll see. That may be a developing storyline going into next week's championship game against Georgia. But Alabama, they did what they always do offensively. Nothing crazy, but just very, very efficient. They had one uncharacteristic turnover, but other than that, just efficient in the red zone, efficient on third downs. They were much better today. But again, I want to go and highlight coaching again. Late in the game, Nick Saban got run over on the sideline, and the game's well in hand. And he turns and yells and cusses out Brian Dable for calling 2 rollout pass plays to the short side of the field. I was like, what the hell are you doing? That's accountability. So for those of you who watch my Cowboys videos, and I often talk about Jason Garrett, coming from the Nick Saban coaching tree, if you will, that's what a head coach is supposed to do. In that situation, and I watched a lot of the coaches' film that they had. ESPN had multiple channels dedicated. I think they had like a Feinbaum film room and different film rooms. I was watching all the coaches, and he was very, some of the other coaches even agreed with him. You have to hold even your assistant coaches, position coaches. Everyone must be held accountable within these games. And the great coaches like Nick Saban, even when things are ahead, I need you guys to be on point. And I appreciated seeing that. I hope those of you who root for teams where coaching is questionable take a note of that, because that's what good looks like. But Alabama, and Kelly Bryant was awful. Clemson just didn't have an answer. They didn't have the playmakers on the outside. A lot of their wide receivers weren't winning in press coverage. And Alabama does what they always do defensively. They suffocate you and force you into mistakes. So, real quick preview for next week. I know a lot of people are complaining, before I get into preview, a lot of people are complaining about it being an all SEC matchup. SEC was down this week, and all sorts of, back and forth about that. And I really just want to say, I always felt Alabama was one of the 4 best teams in the country. They lost one game this year where they were extremely beaten up going into the game, and they came in with a different team today, healthy. Anytime they play at a neutral site, if they're playing at any of these teams at a neutral site, Ohio State, Wisconsin, whoever, they're going to be favored. So I'm sorry, it just is what it is. And Georgia won the SEC, so I'm a proponent of the 18 playoff. I think UCF did get screwed. So both things can be true. We can still enjoy this national championship and still acknowledge that there's room for improvement, and we should get. So I'm more about inclusivity, where we need to get more of these teams in instead of arguing about who should be kicked out, or whatever. Like watching Ohio State beat up on USC. Like Ohio State, they should have had an opportunity to play for that. I said that before. So but it is what it is. Here we are, Alabama, Georgia, student versus mentor. That's a huge storyline. I'm very, very excited to see how it plays out. I think if you're Kirby Smart, especially knowing Saban, you're going to have to do something to throw him off, because Nick's not going to change it what they do. They're going to try to suffocate him, Georgia, and they're going to try to force mistakes out of, put the game in Jake Fromm's hands, and they have the personnel. They're much better equipped to deal with that running game, that two-headed monster that they have, much better equipped than Oklahoma was with their personnel. Oklahoma was very small defensively. Alabama's not going to have those same problems. And the challenge that Georgia's going to have is they don't really have Jake Fromm. As good as he's been playing, he's not mobile. And if you look at Nick Saban's record against just traditional pocket passing QBs, I mean, he does not. It's gross, man. He eats those guys up. So they're gonna have to figure out a way to be dynamic against Saban, or else you could see something like we saw with LSU Alabama a few years ago, where he just has a bead on every single thing they're doing. And in a situation where you're playing a familiar foe in a championship game, it turns into a 21-3 or 24-10 type game. But Georgia has a shot defensively, but I'm still going to lean towards Alabama. I do think that throughout the game, over time, Jalen Hurts will be able to make some plays with his legs, since he can move around a little bit. And I think they'll be able to get a player or two from Calvin Ridley. But we'll see. Very, very excited. I'm also looking forward to the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart back and forth, as I mentioned earlier. And that's it. No, I've been rambling a little bit now, but we'll be back here next week, and I'll chime in with more of my comments as we get closer to the game. But as always, thanks for the support, and see you guys later.